In the bustling city of Lagos, where the streets are alive with energy and opportunity, there lived a young man named Emeka. Emeka was a college student, studying computer science at one of the country's top universities. He was intelligent, ambitious, and driven by the dream of creating a better life for himself and his family. But like many students, he struggled to make ends meet. The cost of living in Lagos was high, and Emeka found it increasingly difficult to balance his studies with the need to support himself financially. Emeka's parents lived in a small village in southeastern Nigeria, and they had sacrificed much to send him to school. They believed in his potential, and they placed their hopes for a better future in his hands. But despite their best efforts, the money they sent him was never enough. Lagos was an expensive city, and Emeka was constantly in need of more money to cover his tuition, rent, food, and other expenses. One evening, as Emeka sat in his cramped hostel room, staring at his laptop screen, he stumbled upon an article about cryptocurrency. It was a new world, one filled with stories of people making vast sums of money overnight. Emeka was intrigued. He had always been good with computers, and the idea of making money through digital currencies seemed like a golden opportunity. He began researching everything he could about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies, diving deep into the complexities of blockchain technology. As he delved further into the world of cryptocurrency, Emeka became obsessed. He joined online forums, watched countless videos, and learned how to trade. At first, he started small, investing the little money he had saved from his part-time job. To his surprise, his investments began to grow. The market was volatile, but Emeka had a knack for spotting trends, and within a few months, he had doubled his money. Encouraged by his success, Emeka began to take bigger risks. He borrowed money from friends, promising to pay them back with interest once his investments paid off. His confidence grew as he saw his account balance rise, and soon he was making more money from cryptocurrency than he had ever imagined possible. But with success came temptation. As Emeka's wealth grew, so did his desire for more. He began to live a lavish lifestyle, spending money on expensive clothes, gadgets, and nights out in the city's most exclusive clubs. He surrounded himself with people who were drawn to his newfound wealth, and soon Emeka was caught up in a world of excess. It wasn't long before Emeka's involvement in cryptocurrency caught the attention of some unsavory characters. One night, as he was leaving a club, he was approached by a man who introduced himself as Jide. Jide was smooth-talking and charismatic, and he claimed to be involved in a business that could make Emeka even richer. He told Emeka about a new opportunity, an investment in a cryptocurrency scheme that was guaranteed to bring in massive returns. Emeka, blinded by greed, didn't ask too many questions. He was excited by the prospect of making even more money and saw this as his ticket to becoming truly wealthy. Jide introduced him to a group of men who were running the operation, and they quickly brought Emeka into their fold. What Emeka didn't realize was that this investment was nothing more than a front for a massive money laundering operation. The men he had gotten involved with were not businessmen, they were criminals. They used cryptocurrency to move large sums of illegal money across borders, hiding their tracks in the anonymity of the digital world. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Emeka's account balance skyrocketed, and he was living a life of luxury. But as the weeks went by, he began to notice things that didn't add up. The men he was working with were secretive and paranoid, always talking in hushed tones and looking over their shoulders. They would transfer large amounts of money into his account, instructing him to move it to various cryptocurrency wallets. Emeka knew something was wrong, but by this point, he was in too deep. The final straw came when Emeka overheard a conversation between Jide and one of the other men. They were talking about a shipment of drugs that was being paid for using cryptocurrency. Emeka's blood ran cold as he realized the full extent of what he had gotten himself into. He was not just involved in money laundering, he was helping to finance a drug operation. Panicked, Emeka decided he needed to get out. But it was too late. The men he was involved with were dangerous, and they had no intention of letting him walk away. They began to threaten him, telling him that if he didn't continue to help them, they would expose his involvement to the authorities. Emeka was trapped, caught between a rock and a hard place. Things took a darker turn when Emeka was introduced to a woman named Amoka. She was beautiful, confident, and seemed to have the world at her feet. But behind her glamorous exterior, Amoka was deeply involved in the criminal underworld. She ran a prostitution ring that catered to the city's elite, and she quickly took a liking to Emeka, pulling him further into her world. Amoka and Jide worked together, using Emeka to launder the profits from their illegal activities. Emeka's life spiraled out of control as he became more entangled in their schemes. He started using drugs to cope with the stress and fear, and his once promising future as a computer science student became a distant memory. The end came swiftly and without warning. One morning, as Emeka was leaving his apartment, he was surrounded by police. They had been investigating the money laundering operation for months and had finally gathered enough evidence to make arrest. Emeka was taken into custody, along with Jide, Amoka, and the others involved in the operation. In the courtroom, Emeka's life unraveled before his eyes. The judge, stern and unforgiving, listened to the evidence presented by the prosecution. The once bright and ambitious young man was now a shell of his former self, broken by the weight of his choices. His family, who had sacrificed so much to send him to school, watched in horror as he was sentenced to years in prison. As Emeka sat in his cell, reflecting on the decisions that had led him there, he realized the tragic irony of his situation. In his pursuit of wealth and success, he had lost everything that truly mattered: his education, his future, and the trust of those who loved him. He had been lured by the promise of easy money, only to find himself ensnared in a web of crime and deceit. Emeka's story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of greed and the consequences of getting involved in illegal activities. It is a cautionary tale for those who might be tempted by the allure of quick riches, showing that the price of such a pursuit can be devastating. In the end, Emeka learned that true success is not measured by wealth alone, but by the integrity with which one lives their life. It is a lesson that came too late for him, but one that others can learn from. The world of cryptocurrency, like any other, can be a force for good or evil, depending on how it is used. And for Emeka, the price of choosing the wrong path was higher than he ever could have imagined.